This is not a storm. It's a 500 kilometers wide engine of destruction. Watch how the ocean fuels the beast as it grows, hungers and turns. The sea boils, winds scream, and torrential rains batter the land. This is a hurricane. You may know them as cyclones or typhoons. We call them hurricanes because that's the name given to these intense rotating storms that occur in different regions of the world. A tropical weather system becomes a hurricane when it has maximum sustained wind speeds of about 74 miles per hour or 120 kilometers per hour. They form over warm ocean water, typically between 10 degrees north and south of the equator, and they need three ingredients to get going: warm water, low pressure, and the Coriolis effect. The Coriolis effect is caused by Earth's rotation. Because the planet rotates from west to east, objects moving north or south are deflected to the right in the northern hemisphere and to the left in the southern hemisphere. This deflection is weak near the equator and stronger the farther you move away from it. So if you had a bunch of air moving north over the equator, it would be deflected to the right into a circular motion. As the air rises and cools, water vapor condenses, forming clouds and also causing even more vapor to get sucked up and strengthening the winds further. Hot water vapor gets released during this process, which heats the air around it. That makes the air less dense and lowers the pressure at the center of the storm. The air then rushes in from the surroundings to replace the rising air, and that air gets pulled into the vortex too. In the Atlantic Ocean, hurricanes are born between June and November when surface ocean temperatures are warmest. In the West and North Pacific, typhoon season lasts from May to October when ocean temperatures peak. In the South Pacific and Indian Ocean, cyclones can form any month of the year, though most often in summer. But no matter where or when they form, all hurricanes have the same basic anatomy. The eye is the center of the storm, and it's usually about 30 to 60 miles or 50 to 100 kilometers in diameter. Here air descends and conditions are calm, although sometimes there's a double eye, meaning two separate areas of low pressure side by side. Surrounding the eye is the eye wall, which contains the strongest winds and the highest waves. Spiraling out from the eye wall are rain bands, which are weaker but still dangerous. Hurricanes are categorized on the Saffir-Simpson scale based on their maximum sustained wind speeds. Category 1 includes storms with wind speeds between 74 and 95 miles per hour or 120 to 150 kilometers per hour. Category 5 includes those with speeds greater than 157 miles per hour or 252 kilometers per hour. When it comes to hurricanes, it's not the wind you have to worry about. Oh no, it's the storm surge. This is the rise in sea level that occurs when hurricane winds push seawater toward the coast. Storm surge is responsible for most of the damage and deaths associated with hurricanes. Of course, high winds and heavy rainfall can cause lots of problems too. High winds uproot trees, down power lines, and tear off roofs. Heavy rainfall leads to inland flooding and can cause rivers to overflow their banks. Intense rainfall combined with storm surge can also cause coastal erosion. Real-life Hurricane Katrina. Here's what it looked like, what the headlines said, and what people experienced. All told, Katrina was the costliest U.S. disaster in history and one of the greatest municipal disasters in modern American history. This is archival footage from August 29, 2005. Government officials were caught off guard by the ferocity of the storm and struggled to coordinate an effective response to the crisis. Within just hours, New Orleans was completely overwhelmed. This map shows the extent of the flooding. Hundreds of thousands of people were forced to flee their homes. Many didn't have anywhere to go. Some stayed behind and waited it out. Jefferson Parish President Aaron V. Broussard led a massive evacuation effort from the New Orleans suburbs, fielding countless desperate calls for help. Unfortunately, the authorities faced an overwhelming number of requests and a severe shortage of resources, making rescue efforts nearly impossible. Louisiana Governor Kathleen Blanco declared a state of emergency and ordered the evacuation of hundreds of thousands. Yet, just days later, she faced heavy criticism for not acting sooner. Michael Chertoff, the Secretary of Homeland Security at the time, oversaw federal disaster response but was widely criticized for mismanaging aid and failing to foresee the impending crisis. All told, Katrina was the costliest U.S. disaster in history and one of the greatest municipal disasters in modern American history. It caused an estimated $125 billion in damage. That's almost $200 billion in today's money. More than 1,800 people lost their lives. Are hurricanes getting worse? Yes, but not in the way you might think. You see, as ocean temperatures increase due to climate change, storms will be able to siphon more energy from the sea, resulting in stronger storms. But studies show it's not an increase in frequency that poses the greatest risk, but rather an increase in intensity. In other words, while the number of hurricanes may stay about the same, the proportion of intense hurricanes will be on the rise. And it's the really intense ones that pose the greatest risk to human populations. People prepare for hurricanes in a variety of ways. Evacuating an affected area can be one of the best ways to protect yourself, especially if you live in a low-lying coastal area that's prone to flooding. If you're not able to evacuate, you can try to fortify your home by boarding up windows and bringing loose outdoor items inside. There are also some tech options available. Early warning systems alert you when a hurricane is coming. They include sirens, emergency broadcasts, mobile apps, and social media alerts. And some companies are developing new early warning systems that give you just minutes to take cover. Imagine a doorbell camera that senses an incoming hurricane and alerts you before you hear the doorbell ring. There are also automatic window shutters, sensors that monitor air pressure, and systems that can waterproof your home. Of course, all these options aren't foolproof. It's hard to predict exactly where a hurricane will make landfall, and once one hits, the power goes out, roads become impassable, and help may be a long time coming. That's why some people living in hurricane-prone areas build their homes with extra protection. Here in Florida, many homes have concrete storm shutters built into their walls. Others use plywood or metal shutters. Roof tiles are designed to withstand high winds and flying debris, and special attention is paid to windows. Here in Florida, most new construction uses impact-resisting glass. These windows let light pass through while withstanding strong winds and preventing shattering. But some people simply don't have the option of leaving or fortifying their homes. For example, on certain Pacific islands, entire communities can be wiped out in a matter of hours. Entire villages disappear under a deluge of water. Homes and buildings get swept away. People cling to whatever they can to keep from being swept out to sea. On average, about 10 tropical cyclones hit the Philippines each year. Residents have learned to live with the constant threat of devastating storms. Some places are particularly vulnerable to hurricanes. That's why people who live there have developed unique ways of coping. Low-lying coastal areas are particularly vulnerable because of storm surge. As we mentioned earlier, storm surge is a rise in sea level that occurs when hurricane winds push seawater toward the coast. Because the land slopes downward toward the sea, the water has nowhere to go but up. Take New Orleans, for example. Much of the city sits below sea level. During Hurricane Katrina, a failure of the city's flood levees allowed seawater to pour in. The Big Easy became the Big Wet. On top of that, New Orleans is surrounded by canals dug decades ago to provide the city with drinking water. Those canals acted as funnels for Hurricane Katrina's, rushing in from Lake Pontchartrain to the north and the Mississippi River to the east. One resident likened it to pouring a bucket of water into a bathtub with the drain open. Inundation isn't the only problem for low-lying coastal areas. Coastal erosion is another big issue. Waves crashing ashore pick up sand and hurl it into the sea. Over time, this wears away the coastline. During Hurricane Sandy, for example, the U.S. island of Barrier Beaches disappeared entirely. Scientists estimate that without human intervention, the remaining beaches could be gone in as little as 50 years. That's why many coastal communities are investing in beach nourishment projects, basically building up beaches to counteract erosion caused by storms. Barrier islands are particularly vulnerable because they are narrow strips of land that form offshore. They act as natural barriers between the ocean and the rest of the mainland, protecting inland areas from storm surge and erosion. When they're gone, coastal areas lose valuable protection from the sea. The Philippines is one country that's found itself on the wrong end of a hurricane. Its nearly 20,000 islands are scattered across the Pacific Ocean, making it one of the most disaster-prone countries in the world. Typhoons and earthquakes are common occurrences, but typhoons are the worst. Its rainy season lasts from June to November, and during that time, the country can experience up to 20 typhoons. Communities are often cut off from the rest of the country. Roads become rivers and homes get destroyed. People have no choice but to rebuild again and again. To cope, many Filipino families grow rice and other crops to sustain themselves during the lean months. They store seeds in waterproof containers and preserve meat by smoking it or salting it. Families also grow fruit trees to provide them with food in times of need. In this photo, residents wade through floodwaters in the aftermath of Typhoon Haiyan was the strongest tropical cyclone to hit the country in recent history. With maximum sustained wind speeds of 195 miles per hour or 315 kilometers per hour, it killed more than 6,000 people, injured over 20,000 and left more than 4 million homeless. So while it seems like there's nothing we can do to prevent hurricanes, there are things we can do to lessen their impact. We can improve early warning systems. We can strengthen building codes. We can protect coastal areas from erosion and inundation. And most importantly, we can prepare ourselves. Whether it's by planning ahead of a key awaiting early or simply having a disaster kit ready to go, we can reduce the impact these storms have on our lives. We can't stop hurricanes, but we can stop being unprepared.